Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we sit down, I'll just get my everyone to say a few words.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this council. We ask for your blessing upon this council, upon the councillors, those who work in this building and the decisions that are made. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody. You may be seated. Thank you for coming to tonight's public meeting. These are held immediately before full council meeting every month. Skegness residents can ask questions or make short statements on any matter related to Skegness that is not on the council agenda. Matters that are on the agenda, please wait for the public participation item that is part of the council meeting. When speaking, please state your name and the street where you live. The meeting will finish at 7:15. Thank you very much. Do we have...
You've probably heard of the Rotary Club's scheme to put defibrillators around the town. We first got the idea when we supplied a defibrillator to the Royal Hotel over a year ago now, but in the first 3 weeks it saved 2 lives. And in conjunction with Lives, the organisation, we decided to put them all around town because it's a very expensive business. They cost about £1,300 each with the cabinet, and then there's the cost of installation. So far we've sited 20 around the town. Most of these have been funded, but 5 have been placed on business premises and been paid for by the business, which is absolutely brilliant. And ours is the only organised campaign in the county, would you believe. Lives advises that at least another 20 are needed to cover the town adequately. We've now run out of funds, but are constantly fundraising with events like the Saturday and the Swim Marathon. I'm actually running the fun run, believe it or not, and have sponsorship for the defib campaign. And hopefully with your donation and the money that I raise, we might be close to purchasing another defib. If there is any other source of funding that you can put us in touch with, we'd be very grateful. Thank you.
And also the levy bills will be going out next Tuesday as well. So I would appreciate the councillor's support, because I'm sure some of the businesses will be talking to you about the bid when the levy bills drop on their mat. So we're very busy at the moment putting together a marketing plan and strategy. We've got our board meeting next Tuesday where it's going to be presented. So we've got a number of events which I won't talk about now because they need to be ratified by the board. But I think suffice to say we're also getting a number of funding applications coming in from some of the community and voluntary groups around events as well, and they stretch all along the coast. So we're doing quite a lot in Mablethorpe. I'm also basing myself out at Mablethorpe every Tuesday from the new year as well at the Coastal Centre. I've been to do a number of presentations to different parish and town councils, and it's very well received at Mablethorpe Town Council as well. So I just feel that the message is getting out there. We've got our branding in place now, so we're sort of launching all the social media sites and also the interim website. Also doing a lot of work with Lydia Rusling from Visit Lincoln and Lincoln Big as well, really about sort of connecting up Lincolnshire as a destination. I think Lincoln have proved very effective with working with Visit Lincoln and their bid, so I'm hoping that we can do some of that as well. So I've been attending a lot of things. We had our first business breakfast at Gibraltar Point where we had 39 people attending, so we're absolutely delighted with that. Some really positive feedback where Genius Wi-Fi came and did a really informative presentation. So they're currently working with a lot of businesses around how they can capture some of the data and share that with the big company as well. So it feels very positive. I'm sure the phone will be very hot on sort of Wednesday or Thursday when those bills go out, but if people want a professionally led and managed destination, they have to pay for it, and that's the reality of it really. We'll generate nearly £3.5 million over a 5-year fixed term, so we can plough that back in, and I think we've got a really strong programme of activities that we can sort of prove our worth by really. I won't say too much because I'm conscious I've got the board meeting on Tuesday and it wouldn't be fair to tell you about some of our plans. But I'm really pleased with the staff we've got in place. We are a very small team. There is only 3 of us. But hopefully, you know, with the partner work that we're doing with Lincolnshire Chamber, with Ian, our Business Watch coordinator, we can replicate some of the other things that are going on around the county as well. So I don't know if any of you has any questions. If you give it time.
Yeah, well, traditionally, Skegness has been a resort that's catered for the East Midlands and for South Yorkshire and those sorts of areas.
Yes.
I do know that some of the caravan site owners have targeted Northamptonshire and Cambridgeshire and indeed even further south.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've picked up on
It is.
for future promotion?
Yeah, because we actually had a meeting this morning just about that, looking at where we're going to take. It's going to be a Visit Links Coast tour. So it's sort of building on the work that Tony and some of the team had already started the Jolly On tour, but of course we've got to promote that whole 22-mile stretch of coastline. So what we know that we get the visitors from Nottingham, Sheffield and Derby. So what we need to do is go further afield, and also Beverley and Hull as well, going up that Yorkshire coast and trying some other places. So we're looking at that, doing a bit of a mapping exercise about where to go. And the important thing as well is to work with those other bid destinations. So Carl, our marketing person, will also be linking in with those bid areas, and so that they can link in with local radio campaigns, for example, so that people know in advance that we're going. And then some of the businesses have said they're happy to put in prizes and run competitions on their local radios, so you actually get more for your money. So it'll be a very coordinated approach, but you're entirely right, we do need to look further afield because we're very over-reliant on that existing group of visitors. So there has been a lot of data analysis.
We help as a council in helping you to achieve some of your outcomes. I noticed from the minutes that we do have the trailer bag, which we could use in partnership with yourself and trade shows, etc., and getting the message across. So, you know, how can we help you achieve some of what you're trying to achieve in partnership with you?
I think part of it is reinforcing that message. I think it's that positive message about what we're trying to do. People, if we pull together, we can achieve a great deal. I've had some really good meetings with the police, for example. I know there's lots of issues.
Will it help you? I think I know the answer to this. I just want to check. There's 21 of us. Will it help you if we always remain positive when we're talking about our town? It's not always the case, but I just think, you know, there's plenty in there to be very, very positive about. It's a positive message. Sometimes we know the town so well, so we can dwell in the negative because we see it every day. But, you know, it does concern me that sometimes we're not putting out the right message.
I agree. I think when the residents were the biggest critics,
Yeah.
but I know when I'm agency, because then the only way is up. It's about being realistic as well. There are going to be times when we are going to have to challenge the district councils and the county council, but that's fine. I don't think there's a problem with that really.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you like to state your name, please?
Tony Cumberworth, Skegness.
Okay.
I've got 3 minutes sometimes. There are a few members of the council here that are long-term residents or lifetime residents of this town, as I am. I want to speak about the item 15, is it? The Tower Pavilion. I can remember years and years ago when I was a boy, and it's a long while ago, that there was the red house on the corner of Scarborough Avenue and Park Avenue, which was a derelict building for many, many years from the Second World War, and also the swimming pool, swimming baths that was on Scarborough Avenue, Scarborough Avenue, which is now the Scarborough Avenue car park, and the red house, which was the other premises, they are now the lovely apartments. So the point of making that comment to start with, ladies and gentlemen, is that you don't necessarily need to be rushed into making a decision on item 15, to go ahead now with the funding for it, because there is still maybe an opportunity to get government funding in maybe 2-3 years' time. I don't know, but that's a comment I wanted to make about that to begin with. The then we come on to my single question, is that?
Now you can have a little bit more, as you're the only one wanting to speak.
Right, thank you. The need for a community facility. Is this a perceived need or is it an actual need? You know, have you got evidence that there are people within this town that actually want to use a community facility? If there is evidence that yes, there's plenty of a need for it, then maybe I would support the idea. So, are you going to answer me now, or did you want to?
I would suggest if you have the knowledge, you give it to the member of the public who asks a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
The council carried out consultation when it was looking to build the rather larger building that was hopefully going to be funded through coastal community funds last year, and that involved quite extensive communications with voluntary groups, community associations, some charities and other sort of small groups. What we found was that there is a need, that's the perception of those that want to use the facility, that there isn't good facilities available at an affordable cost, because many of the places that are available are expensive, or the facilities provided in those are very poor. Quite often halls and things like that are not well heated, not well lit. They haven't got good toilet facilities and things like that. And the availability of things like storage, being able to book it at the time that they need it. So there was quite an evidence base there of that information that supported that there is demand for a community facility within Skegness. The Torquay Drink project did a similar audit at the same time, and that's an East Lindsey-wide project. And one of the issues that they had was actually identifying places in Skegness that community groups could meet, and also where they could bring people to meet for their project. And one of the promises that they made at that time was that they would actually use a community facility and try and work with the council to extend the life of their project beyond the funding, so that it became an ongoing community facility that could be used. So in answer to your question, I think yes, there is that evidence base that there is a demand for that type of facility in Skegness.
Thank you for that. So, then, assuming this building does get built, the community facility, will it be free of charge for local people to use? It would seem that is the case, because looking at your budget plans from 2018-19 onwards, there's no actual item in there for income received from the community facility.
In answer to that, the council hasn't yet made the decision, and that would be the decision that it would consider tonight, whether or not to move forward to the next stage, which is to carry out a full feasibility study, because the plans and costings that we had before related to a completely different scale of building. So during the next stage, there would be a new business plan produced and a new feasibility study undertaken. At this moment in time, none of the income streams are in the projected budgets going forward. You're quite right to say that, but that will come out when that feasibility study has been done, when we can understand a little bit more about what the building is going to look like. We don't know that yet. what the costs associated with it are, and whether those are within the sort of cost envelope that was previously looked at last year.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, but I did note that in your estimates for 2019 onwards, you've got no provision on the expenditure side for rental of your accommodation here. So on that basis, I presume or assume that you are planning to go down there anyway, ahead of actually making the decision to actually build the new facility. You can't put expenditure in on one side and not income on the other. You know, we're talking about estimates and not actuals.
In doing this, what we're trying to do is to give a scenario where there is as few surprises as possible. I know from some of the comments that we've received around social media, there's some speculative costs about things like how high the business rates are going to be and what the heating run costs will be. So there are some figures in future years to cover some of those costs, but until we know exactly what the building is like, it's very difficult. So, for example, if we were to have it is possible to build a building that takes very little to heat because of the high levels of thermal insulation that are now available to buildings. So things like this building costs a fortune to heat. A new building, highly insulated, will cost very little to heat. So there are those sorts of things. But until we've got drawings and we understand the exact areas, and it's very difficult to put a firm figure on those. So they are, as you say, a guess. But we haven't included the income at this stage, but we have included some of the expenditure, and that hopefully gives a sort of a scenario where there aren't unexpected costs coming forward, which we don't know about.
Actually, you quite answered what the question I asked, was that the expenditure for the town council's use of this building from 2019 onwards in your budget provision for the next 5 years is zero. So I'm assuming from that you've already decided or have agreed that you're going down to Town Gardens.
The councils, if you actually look at the consultation we did, we said that the council would be seeking to have up to 20% of the space of the building for office accommodation. So there is that assumption sitting behind it that yes, the council would occupy up to 20% of the space of that building. So that's why those costs are not shown in future years. But should council decide not to go forward with that, then that would, the budget hasn't been decided yet, it's not decided and finalised until the January meeting, and if that was the case, then those costs would be placed back. So in terms of moving forward, what we're trying to do is to give a picture, of what the costs are likely to be over a 5-year period, including the current year. But there are lots of factors in there that nobody knows. I mean, we don't know what the economy is going to be like. We don't know the impact of leaving the European Union. There's all sorts of things that could influence those budgets. So they are a best estimate at this point in time. But it does take on board the decision that council made earlier on, which was in principle they have agreed to move forward with that and have up to 20% of the accommodation.
One final point, if I may. Thanks, Alison. I'm not quite sure whether the precepting arrangements are the same as when I was working here. But looking at it, it looks like 4/5 of the council's net expenditure is met by the district council as their precept share. Is that correct?
It's
roughly speaking.
I believe it's about something like that, is
Oh,
14% is the income, and the rest is precept.
Yeah, yeah. So on that basis, borrowing the money to fund this facility is good business sense on the part of the town council. I would like to say that, because the other 86% is being met by the ratepayers or community charge payers, the whole of East Midlands District Council, if they're aware of that or not.
That isn't correct, it's the precept. But the precept only payable by the residents.
But you still precept on the District Council.
The precept is on the residents of the town council, not on the district council as a whole.
But in your budget, sorry about that, this may be
Currently 5,300 properties or thereabouts pay council tax.
Yeah, in your budget, precept for this actual budget for this financial year, you're looking at, well, net total budget expenditure of 500,000, and precept of 403,000. Now, have I got it wrong that £403,000 isn't met by the district council?
It is collected by the district council, but it's collected from the people of Skegness. It's not collected from any other person in East England. It's just collected from the 5,300.
So in that case, then it's not a good idea. I'll take that comment back. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Tony Tyler, resident of Skegness, Sunbay Company. I see today on the Standards paper website that we had a pie chart with the answer of 84% in favour. I just wonder who through that pie chart have managed to get 84% in favour, and if you look at the people who answered the question, yay and nay, look very similar.
I think, Mr. Tyler, you're just looking at the comments. You're referring to the pavilion consultation rather than
Absolutely.
Consultation.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of confusion in the newspaper over which you were talking about. The comments, not only a proportion of those that responded actually made comments. And obviously I've got the benefit of being able to look at the response that they gave, yes, or they're in favour, or no, they're not in favour, and then the comments that are made alongside that. Now, some of the comments, I'll accept they're saying, we'd really like you perhaps to keep what's there, but if you can't, we actually support going ahead with something new. And so they've ticked yes that they support it. There are others that have made some comments that pose some questions which we would be looking at if council decide tonight to move forward. We would be looking at some of those questions in terms of further consultation to clarify what those actually mean. But certainly in terms of the numbers, in the principles that were set out, which is the council will build on the site, that it will borrow the money to pay for it, that it'll try and it'll have something that's in keeping, whatever that means, because we haven't decided, that hasn't been decided at this point in time. Then it was a yes or no. Do you support what the council wants to do, or do you not want to support it? And 84% of those that responded to that supported what the council wanted to do.
Or was that not to do with the question that was asked? And the question asked was, would you be prepared to pay extra rates to get a better service?
That was a separate question.
Well, it's a separate question, but it was the same.
No, there were two separate sets of results, and unfortunately, it has been mixed up in the newspaper. There are two sets of results. What I've said on the budget consultation is actually there were too few responses for council to be able to rely on what's being said. It broadly came out about 50-50, but there were only 24 responses to that one.
Really?
There were 24 responses, broad, slightly in favour of paying more for services, but at a level of 24 responses, it simply isn't enough responses for council to be able to rely on that figure. So in my report, which will be coming out later, you will be discussing later on, what I said to council is you can't rely on that, you've got to make your own decision on this. You can't rely
I'm
on...
suggesting here that it goes back out and it's done in the proper manner, that everybody receives the questionnaire, everybody receives. Who
It's a
pays
separate
rates.
consultation.
I know that a couple of the councillors went round
Through
knocking
the
on
chair,
doors.
please, gentlemen. Apologies. Thank you.
I know that two of the councillors went round knocking on doors up at Seacroft. I know that, because people are phoning me to ask for my opinion about it. But what I'm saying is that it really must go out to the whole of Skegness, and let's see what the answer is.
I'll give you a response to that, which is when you look at budget consultations across the country, and I have done, you get a very, very low percentage return. The percentage that we've got is not unusual, and I'm sure if those East Lindsey district councillors who would have been to a meeting earlier on today would have had a discussion about council tax system, council tax release system and how that works, and that's been out for consultation, and across the whole district they got 55 responses. It is very difficult, it's not something that people respond to very well. We know it's been out on social media, and we know that lots,
It's out on
thousands of people.
It was on Twitter. How many people in Skegness actually use Twitter?
It was also on Facebook, and we can evidence how many people have seen it because it's been out through various other forums, and we get the feedback to say how many people have seen it but just simply not responded. It was mentioned in the newspaper, it was on the Skegness Siren, online. So there's been a lot of opportunities for people. It went, it was in one of the little local magazines as well. We can't go out to every single person in Skegness because it would cost too much money. It would cost more. You'd have to put the precept up to pay for that. Typically, in this a town of this size, it would cost about between £14,000 and £20,000 to carry out a full door-to-door survey. That is either by post or by going around and knocking on every door. That would have to be added to the precept, which would sort of offset the question that was being asked. So I think in terms of what the council has done, it's put it out as best it can through the very many online media. We've had it in the newspapers, so people have been aware of it, but like in every other place up and down the country, people have chosen not to respond to it.
Well, that's not the response that I'm receiving from the public. They're telling me that nobody knew anything about this. Only certain few. Certain few that went on to the town council page and downloaded the page.
Well, if they knew to tell you about that, why couldn't they have responded? They could have picked up the phone and asked us about it.
Because they didn't know in the first place. That's because it didn't go out. It didn't go out to enough people.
Well, it did go out widely from shortly after the last council meeting, and it went through till the agenda dispatch day for this meeting, so that we could compile those figures. Most of the responses on the budget came in the very first few days. There were one or two came in later, but most came in the first few days. And I think, yes, there will always be people who haven't seen something, but I think the council has done as much as it can in terms of trying to reach as many people as possible. And quite clearly, there were people who knew about it, and I would have thought word of mouth, if it was you know, a very contentious issue, that would have pushed it around as well. But 24 responses out of 19,000 population, 15,000 adult population is not a huge amount.
Last question. Are we going to push East Lindsey District Council to pay for the demolition of the building?
That isn't a question that I can answer.
Because I really feel that we should be pushing them to pay for the demolition of the building. They have let it go to rack and ruin.
All I can say is the council have been in consultation with the district council. The district council are working closely with us, and I think they want to get to the same place in terms of there being something on that site that serves the community. I think that's the that's where we are.
I agree with you that, but we just really need to push East Lindsey to get the place demolished and let's start the.
Well, that's something that perhaps council can answer when it debates it later on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If it's of any use, I'm aware that East Lindsey are seeking to tender for the demolition of the building because it is getting close to being structurally unsafe. So one way or another, if we don't build on it, it will be coming down one way or another. So it's going to join that project. They haven't said how it's going to be paid for yet, but so I can't say yes, they are definitely going to pay for it. But I know for a fact they've actually started the process of tendering how it might. There's loads of work that's been done around party walls and things like that, as the town clerk is fully aware. Son?
Chair, may I say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a meeting on Monday night at Croft with my wife, who is the district councillor. And normally you get about 2 people turn up at Croft, but there was an application for a caravan site, a 5CL site, down Gibraltar Road. There were 40 people turned up to oppose this caravan site. It wasn't even a planned application, it was a apply to the caravan club for a certified site. All I would say is, where is everybody? If there's so much angst and they don't like it, where are they? They would be here.
I just wanted to say something that might help Mr. Ty, I'm not sure.
Can't see because there's no street lights.
I've got plenty of time on my hands, Mr. Chairman, so I had a look at the responses. 156 people said yes, and 130 people said yes, and 26 were against. But when you analyse the 88 people that Mr. Ty was talking about who commented, 38 of them were either against or had a caveat which suggested that the old pavilion be retained. I'm not sure how we've got 26 against, yes or no, on a plain vote, but actually 38 people expressed either clearly against or doubts about the pavilion scheme. I don't know if that helps Mr. Ty. As I said, I've got plenty of time on my hands to look at that. There seems to be more people objecting than the bold figures suggest.
Thanks, Chief. I think it's worth explaining that some people said they wanted to keep the building.
Yeah.
However, if they couldn't do that, then build
That's
new.
right.
So they obviously voted yes.
Makes it a grey area.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you. People that I've spoken to from my own family regarding South Garden Pavilion and what we want to do as a town council are totally confused because we operate the 3-tier system in local government. That is the reason why people have not responded. I don't think they appreciate or can comprehend how much that's going to cost us in Skegness, because if it was a Lincolnshire County Council project, it would be paid for by Lincolnshire area as a whole. If it was an East Lindsey, as you Tony mentioned, it would be paid for by East Lindsey residents, but it's going to be a Skegness project. It's going to fall on Skegness residents, and I don't think they understand that fully yet. I know the consultation has gone out but I think it needs to be said in more layman's skill. I know we're going to debate it later on, but there is a lot of confusion to who pays what and what is paid out of the council tax.
We're going to move on now with other members. We don't want to debate that now because we've got a debate on that coming up. Before we do move, I would just like to say I wish 30 years ago our councillors were all somewhere today because we wouldn't be having this discussion now. And yes, I'm willing to pay £4 extra a week so that my kids and their kids in 30 years' time won't have to pay as much because the building will be owned and they won't be rented like we are now. We'll move on. Item 5, Town Mayor's announcements and correspondence. Details are available on the council website, Facebook and Twitter. Unfortunately, we have no police here to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did submit this question quite a while ago. I did ask the previous Inspector Code to give us written evidence of what is actually happening. And that must have been over a year ago now, if I can remember correctly. And now I'm still waiting for a written response on a true reading of the figures attached. I'm not looking at just the issue regarding the street lights being off, but there are certain issues that I need to understand and we need to understand as community representatives. It's not just the case of street lighting being turned off, it's about road safety, there's issues about crime, there's the issues of fear of crime, there's people in our town also who suffer because there is not enough light on health issues. I know about this because people have come forward. We have got to get a grip of this. But without getting the truth, facts and figures before us, how can we make a decision? How can we send issues to a scrutiny committee? I'm involved in many scrutiny committees. As I said before, and I'm responding to the town clerk, you can do a lot of good scrutiny work, but if that executive or that political organisation who controls the local authority can turn a deaf ear and a deaf eye to it when they're making political decisions. I think if we get the true facts, we need to speak as a true council and we need to stand up for our local residents regarding what is happening in our town. I've heard about businesses closing early, so it's lost to the economy, lost its jobs. I hear about young women who are frightened to work and come home late at night because they live in residential areas where there are no street lighting for. I hear lots of things going on in our community and still we have no street lights, and we've had the leader of Lincolnshire County Council saying quite clearly they're not going back on.
Just to clarify, Inspector Benson contacted